Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you look at what is happening in the Muslim community, we are celebrating Eid al-Adha on Sunday, June 6th, 16th. But some of the communities are having Eid al-Adha on Monday, June 17th. So according to our calendar, the day of Arafah will be tomorrow. But according to them, it will be on Sunday. So we will be fasting on Saturday. They will be fasting on Sunday. And their contention is that basically we are not required to go or follow the day of Arafah as it is celebrated or observed by the Hujjaj. I want to do the justice to their argument first, and then I will come and talk about our argument. Their argument is that the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, and in the second year of Medina, when he saw that some of the Jews were celebrating some of their special day of Ashura or special Eid, he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with two Eid. So he established Eid al-Fitr and established Eid al-Adha. So Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr were established in the second year of Hijrah, while Hajj was made obligatory in the 6th or 9th year of Hijrah. So their contention is that Eid al-Fitr or Eid al-Adha are not connected with the action of Hujjaj or Hajj. They are something separate. So their argument is that Muslims are not required to look at the day of Arafah as is observed in Saudi Arabia. They should go with their local moon sighting. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, Sumu li ru'yati wa aftiru li ru'yati. Start fasting the month of Ramadan by sighting the moon. Stop fasting the month of Ramadan by sighting the moon. فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ فَاقْدُرُوا. And if it is cloudy, then either calculate, count, or فَأَكْمِلُوا ثَلَاثِينَ, or complete the 30 days of the month. So therefore, everybody is required to look at the moon, and whenever the news comes from the local authorities, every city or every country should go with their local moon sighting. Am I clear? Then they also say that Prophet ﷺ lived in Medina. Mecca was having the Hajj. Prophet ﷺ never sent a person to go check when the Hajj is being done in Mecca or when the day of Arafah is taking place in Mecca. He sighted the moon and he made the announcement, today is Eid al-Fitr and tomorrow is what? Or whatever is Eid al-Adha. So he never required anybody to connect the day of Arafah with the local moon sighting. And then they also quote that most of these rulings which we are talking, Muzdalifah, say for example Mina or Arafat, they are meant for Hujjaj. For Hujjaj, there are separate rules. For the Muslim community, there are what? Separate rules. So nobody is required or recommended to look at the action of the Hujjaj. All of those rules are connected with the Hujjaj themselves, and for the local Muslim community, their rules are different. Then they also quote, now number 4 argument, they also quote many of the scholars' opinion in which ulama were asked, say for example in the past, are we required to look for the day of Arafah and connect our fasting or Eid with that, or should we do it separately? So the ulama, most of them, they said, we cannot find out the day of Arafah, so we go with our local sighting. So whenever is determined by our local sighting that tonight or today is the 9th of Zulhijjah, we fast and we observe the day of Eid on 10th of Zulhijjah. So therefore they say for the past 14 centuries, our ulama did not require fasting along with the day of Arafah as the wukuf is done. And actually majority of them said, you are not required to look for the day of Arafah. You observe at the 9th day of your Zulhijjah as it is determined by your local moon sighting. Am I clear? Are the arguments clear? Now, here I am going to be analyzing those arguments and then give you my opinion at the end. My respected brothers and sisters, yes, the Prophet ﷺ, when he migrated to Medina, at that time Hajj was not made obligatory. So he established Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha basically without looking into the actions of Hajj, because Hajj was not made obligatory. But one thing needs to be made clear to everybody. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew Hajj before migrating to Medina. Hajj is very ancient, old. It began with Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. وَإِذْ بَوَّأْنَا لِإِبْرَاهِيمَ مَكَانَ الْبَيْتِ أَلَّا تُشْرِكْ بِي شَيْئًا or وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala required Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam to make the announcement for Hajj. And people have been performing Hajj since the time of what? Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Rasulullah sallam performed Hajj while he was in Mecca and he was not Nabi. He performed the Hajj even when the authorities in Mecca were mushrikeen. This is where he met with the people of Medina when they came to perform Hajj. So they offered the bay'ah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Mina while they were performing Hajj. So Hajj is not something which was not known to the Arabs or to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam before going to Medina. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not require the Muslims to go and perform Hajj because they would be killed if they go to Mecca. Mecca was under the authority of the mushrikeen who have expelled Rasulullah sallam, who have gone to kill him in Badr and Uhud. They could not go. So how could Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala require them to perform Hajj while it is beyond their capability? La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. But Rasulullah sallam did not establish the two Eids out of blue. Remember, he knew when Ramadan comes to an end. I mean, he was fasting the days of Ramadan even in Makkah before Nubuwwah. That's where he was fasting and doing itikaf in Ghar Hira when Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam came, because the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam would go and do the fasting of Ramadan in Ghar Hira. So Ramadan was known to him, and then the season of Hajj was known to him. So that's where when he established the two Eid, he established it as the beginning of the season of Hajj and the culmination of the season of Hajj. Because the season of Hajj begins from the first day of Shawwal. First day of Shawwal is the day of Eid al-Fitr. A person who is intending to do the Hajj can put on the ihram on the day of Eid al-Fitr, because people used to travel by the camels, by donkeys. It used to take them a long time. So they will put on the ihram on the first day of Shawwal, day of Eid al-Fitr. Then they will travel to Makkah and make it by the first of Zulhijjah and culminate it with what? The day of Arafah. So the Prophet ﷺ received the revelation from Allah and the guidance. So he established the first day of the season of Hajj as Eid al-Fitr, and established the last day of Eid season as Eid al-Adha. So therefore, nobody can say that the Eids were established isolated or independently from the actions of Hajj. Look at the Quran. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins with the ayat of what? Ayat of fasting. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba ala allazina min qablikum. After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the fasting month, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts talking about Hajj. Wa atimmul hajja wal umrata lillah. Complete the Hajj and Umrah for the sake of Allah. Al-Hajju ashhurum ma'lumat. Hajj is during the known months. Quran even does not say it is Shawwal, Zikada and Zilhajj because those months are known. So Quran just says that it is in the known months. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the ruling of Arafat, Muzdalifah, Mina. So it begins with what? Ramadan. And it climaxes or it culminates in what? The actions of Hajj. So the sequence of the Quran goes with the way Rasulullah sallam established the Eid, Eid al-Fitr, as well as Eid al-Adha. So therefore, their first statement that the Eids were established independently of Hajj is not proven neither from the Quran nor from the actions of Rasulullah sallam. Second thing, if you look into the Quran, all of the things which you and me do in our daily life during the day of Zil-Hijjah are directed to the Hujjaj first and through them to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never said, you and me do the takbirat, or you and me slaughter the animal, or you and me fast on the day of what? Zil-Hijjah. All of those commandments are directed to Hujjaj. وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ فِي أَيَّامٍ مَعْدُودَاتٍ. Remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in those specified days. لَن يَنَالَ اللَّهَ لُحُومُهَا وَلَا دِمَاؤُهَا وَلَكِنْ يَنَالُهُ التَّقْوَى مِنْكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the Hujjaj, فَإِذَا وَجَبَتْ جُنُوبُهَا فَكُلُوا مِنْهَا وَآتِمُوا الْقَانِيَ وَالْمُعْتَرِ. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to the Hujjaj, slaughter the animal, do these kind of takbirat, go from Arafah to Muzdalifah, from Muzdalifah to Mina, and through them, we are following them. Am I clear? So our ulama said that everything a person, a Muslim does during the month of Zil-Hijjah is tab'an lil-Hujjaj, is in imitation of Hujjaj. We get the sawab, extended sawab, because of the actions of Hujjaj in those parts. Am I clear? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires them to do takbirat. So if we do takbirat, we get the sawab. He tells them to slaughter the animal. If we slaughter the animal, we are imitating them. We get the sawab. So even the month takes the name from the name of Hajj, Zul-Hijjah, the month of Hajj. So when the Prophet ﷺ said that these are the most sacred days, why are they sacred days, the 10 days? Because Hajj is being performed. So even the name of the month is with Hajj. Coming back to the third thing, which is the statement of many ulama. And especially, let's talk about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he never sent a person from Medina to go to Mecca, find out when is the day of Arafah, and then announce that this is the day we will be fasting. First of all, 9 years of Rasulullah sallam's nubuwwah in Medina, he has not even done the Hajj, because Hajj is under the authority of kuffar. And as you know, the Quran says, إِنَّ عِدَّةَ الشُّهُورِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ اثْنَا عَشَرَ شَهْرًا فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ يَوْمَ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ مِنْهَا أَرْبَعَةٌ حُرُمٌ إِنَّمَا النَّسِيُّ زِيَادَةٌ. What they used to do is, the kuffar of Makkah, As you know, it's very hot in Mecca. When it is too hot, the Hujjaj will not come. So their business is what? Compromised. When it's too cold in Syria, in Palestine, in Turkmenistan, those areas where it is freezing and because of snow, the roads are closed, the Hujjaj will not come. So therefore, they used to what? They used to say that this is what is called intercalation. If you look at the Jewish calendar, for example, to make the solar calendar, the calendar which is connected with the sun, coincide with the lunar calendar, they add 19 days after every 3 years, because the lunar calendar is what? 254 days. Sometime 29 days, sometime 30 days. Solar calendar is mostly 30 and 31 days. It is 365 days. To make the lunar calendar coincide with 365 days, every 3 years, they used to add 19 days to the year. So month is Muharram or Safar, but they will say, we are still in the month of Zil Hijjah. Am I clear? So to have their good business, sometime the time is sacred, but they will say, no, it is not sacred. But we will perform the Hajj when good weather comes. So they will announce, it will not be the sacred month of Zil Hijjah, it will be Safar or Rabiul Awwal, but they will say Hajj will be performed on such and such day. So imagine, why would Prophet ﷺ send somebody while this day of Arafah, when they are staying at Arafah, is not really the sacred day of even month of Zil Hijjah. So therefore, remember the Prophet ﷺ, he is the authority. He knows it better than the kuffar of Mecca. So they go with the sighting in Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ says today is, and then also it's a lot of effort to send somebody from Medina to go to Mecca and come back after 10 days to tell them when is the wukuf of Arafah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want the ummah to go through this kind of hassle. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want to make your life miserable. So you do whatever is convenient to you. Ibadah is accepted. Now, coming back to the whole issue. My respected brothers and sisters, you know, I have written the book about astronomical calculation and the, Ramadan. And I was among the first ones who kind of advocated for the calculations, or what we call the scientific moonsighting. Am I clear? And I was also the one who was saying that we need to have our calendar. We do not need to depend upon Saudi Arabia or anybody, because if you do not tell the school boards or the city halls beforehand, they will not be able to give you the vacation on the day of Eid. And also, when you look at our engineers and doctors, if they have to come for Eid, and they do not make the arrangement ahead of time, nobody is going to accept their plea that I will tell you at 12 p.m. or 1 a.m. in the night time, and you find the alternate for me, and tomorrow cancel my surgery. Nobody will do it. So I was advocating for the established calendar, and I am still for it. But wallahi, as much as I studied, did the research work, I came to the conclusion that Eid al-Fitr is something which is connected with sacred time. Ramadan is sacred. Eid is the culmination of the act of fasting. You can be anywhere in the world and you can observe the fasting of Ramadan, but you cannot do the Hajj everywhere. Hajj is sacred time. You can do it only in Zil Hijjah. You cannot even do it on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, It has to be on 8th of Zulhijjah and culminated by 13th of Zulhijjah. Only 5 days. Second thing, you have to go to Kaaba. You have to go to Mina. You have to go to Arafah. You have to go to Muzdalifah. From Muzdalifah, you have to come to Mina. From there, you have to come to Kaaba. So it is connected with sacred time as well as with sacred places. Am I clear? So you cannot do it out of those sacred times, and you cannot do it away from those sacred places. And the third element is, even if the sacred time is there, sacred places are there, but these sacred people are not there, Hujjaj are not there, that will not be accepted as wukuf of Arafah if there's no Hajj there. So 3 elements have to come together to bring the sanctity of what we call Hajj. Sacred people, sacred places, and sacred timings. Am I clear? Hajj is sacred act, but you need to be going to Arafat and Mina and Kaaba to do it. So therefore, Eid al-Adha, which is the culmination of Hajj, is not only connected with the sacred timing, let's say 9th of Zulhijjah, 10th of Zulhijjah, but it seems to be also connected with sacred places. Am I clear? But if you look into the Quran, as I mentioned, everything which we do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the Hujjaj to do it, and we imitate them in those actions. As I just mentioned to you, takbirat. Quran never says you do the takbirat from the 9th of Zulhijjah till 13. That order is to the Hujjaj. When it comes to Qurbani and Udhiyah, the commandment is to them and through them to us. So most of those actions which you and me do, they are directed to Hujjaj, and by means of imitation we do it and we get the sawab. So therefore, I concluded that Arafah is not just the time. Am I clear? It is also a place. And the Prophet ﷺ made it very much clear. Al-Arafah yawma taqifun. Arafah is when you, the Hujjaj, you stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the place of Arafah. Am I clear? Now, explaining why our ulama in the past said, you don't have to worry about the wukuf of Arafah, you go with your own calculation. Now, we know from the time of Rasulullah ﷺ till modern time, the means of communication were not very rapid. The means of transportation were also not very rapid. Even if a person was living in Iraq or in Sham, there was no way for him to know when the Hujjaj are going to be doing the wukuf of Arafah. Even in my childhood, the Haji will go, we will go to receive them in Karachi or somewhere, and we will ask them, or my father will ask them, I remember, when did you do Eid? They will say on such and such day. And we will say, we have done it a day before or the day after, because there was no way for people to come to know when the wukuf is being done, number one. Number two, if people would have connected their day of fasting with the wukuf of Arafah, they would have to go and find out when the Arafah is taking place, and it was impossible for them. Also, and I am going to be very clear with you, there were also problems in our history where different families or different groups or different political entities controlled different areas. For example, this area is controlled by Abbasid, the other area is controlled by Fatimid, this part is controlled by Ghaznavis, and that part is by, this family. Sometimes they did not also want to give their obedience to the other hakim. So they didn't want to follow. So they say, no, we have got our own sighting, which was show of independence and freedom. And so therefore, when our old ulama or medieval ulama, all of these fatwas, that you don't have to worry about the day of Arafah, go with your own local moon sighting, remember that those fatwas were relevant to their time and with their situation, and they are not extended till the day of judgment. Now, once the situation has changed, we can look at Kaaba, 5 daily prayers. We can look at the movement of Hujjaj from one place to the other place. We can see now the Hujjaj are doing the dua. Now we cannot come and say, we do not know when is the day of Arafah, or when the Hujjaj are spending the time there. So now the question is, what is better? To go and fast the day when Hujjaj are there, or say, no, this is not my day of Arafah, I'll fast the day when nobody is staying at Arafah. This is the question which is the most significant, and here I am going to be giving the details. My respected brothers and sisters, there's nothing in the Quran or in the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in which he said that you do the day of Arafah on 9th of Zil-Hijjah and you do the Eid on 10th of Zil-Hijjah. He always connected it, Quran always connected the day of Arafah with the wukuf of Arafat. And even there are fatwas of ulama that if the Hujjaj made the mistake and stood there on 8th of Zil-Hijjah or stood there on 10th of Zil-Hijjah, that day will become the day of Arafah. Because the most sacred people are invited by Allah. So this is the global gathering. Because of their stand in Arafah, you and me get the sawab of fasting, and the sawab is elevated. So even if they make mistake, that will become the day of Arafah, and nobody is allowed to knowingly say for example, this is a discussion among our ulama in the past. Say for example, some people in their city looked at the moon with their own eyes. Now they went to perform Hajj according to their moon sighting. Say for example, the day of Arafah was on Friday. But the announcement was made by the authorities, Hajj authorities, that the Arafah is going to be on Saturday. It's not allowed for those people who sighted the moon with their own eyes to make the stand on Friday in the plain of Arafah. Because unity is more important than the actual day. Am I clear? So therefore, it becomes clear that unity is what is more important than the time and the dates. So right now, this is where I am trying to say that right now, it becomes so easy for us to figure out when is the day of Arafah. So once we know the Hujjaj there, by the time that day comes to me, that day has got the barakat of all of those du'as which were done by the Hujjaj in the plain of Arafah. So when I fast, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also counts me among the people who will get the sawab. Am I clear? So therefore, right now, I truly believe that the maslaha amma, maslaha, is that we fast on the day when the Hujjaj are standing there and do not insist upon our local moon sighting, because imagine, at that time, the Ummah was not united because there was no communication, there was no transportation, and everybody was doing in their own city This city will do it on Friday, the other on Saturday, this one on Wednesday. But they said that in that local community, you do not do two Eid. Just everybody in that city should do it. But imagine if Detroit is doing it on Friday, and Ohio is doing it on Saturday, and the next one is doing it on Sunday. Right now, everybody sees it. So therefore, right now, it is preferable that we go with the day of Arafah, because we are supposed to imitate them, follow them, and basically the greater sawab of that day is connected with that special wuquf in Arafah. Now, one comment. Yes, there is nothing in the Quran or in the authentic Sunnah of Rasulullah sallam in which he said, you have to do the fasting on the day when the people stand in Arafah, or follow them and do the Eid the next day. But there is also no statement in the Quran, in the Hadith, or in the books of fiqh that you knowingly go against the day of Arafah. None of our ulama ever said that if you know when is the day of Arafah, go with your local moonsighting. Am I clear? All of those statements are if you do not know. So right now, we know it. It is better to have this sense of unity when the Hujjaj are there. We also fast. When they are making the dua, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. So because of their du'as, our du'as will be also accepted. But I am not among those people who would go and accuse the others. As long as they are following a system, their own understanding of hadith, their own understanding of fatwa, it's okay. But I will strongly recommend them also to look at some of the arguments, and I have sent you 2 articles. Look at those articles, and maybe I think the code is there. You can just take the picture of the code and you will have the articles. You will read it. There are more details in that. But with all honesty, right now, if you look at the ummah, how much suffering we are going through, right now we need to show unity, strength, and that will come only if we do it along with Hajj. One final comment. We have been sending the dates of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha based upon calculations. I can tell you for the past 10, 15, 20 years, at least for the last 10 years, our calculations have coincided with the day of Arafah and with the day of Eid. So now I feel very comfortable that I am still going with the scientific way of looking at the moon. I know the moon is born, it can be seen. So when the Saudis make the announcement, but once in a while, if it will be different, I would still prefer to go with the day of Arafah rather than with my own calculation, because that is the priority. That has got more significance than doing it by yourself. Now, coming back to the question which Mufti Saab asked, that sometime the people or the science says it is impossible for the moon to be sighted, and the announcement comes, so how is it possible? Here you will be astonished. I will have to come and give you another lecture about it. You know, sometimes we do not know that even when it comes to the calculations, there is difference of opinion among the astronomers. There is no difference of opinion when it comes to the birth of moon, because the birth of moon is everywhere the same in the world. Not a second is different among the Muslims, non-Muslims, Christian, Jews, nothing. But when it comes to sightability, the calculations, when the moon can be sighted, there's a lot of difference. Because when it comes to the sighting, lot of factors come in between the person who is sighting and the moon. What if the sky is there? Dust, moisture, the angle of the moon from the sun, latitude, longitude, the eyes of the person who is sighting it. So lot of factors come in between. So even though there is 80 to let's say 85% consensus among everybody that we can kind of predict when the moon will be sighted, in the 15% situation, there's always going to be difference of opinion. But when it comes to the birth of moon, there's not a single difference of opinion. Am I clear? That is known to everybody at the exact same seconds. Now let me explain to you our methodology. The methodology of the Fiqh Council of North America, and that is also the methodology of the European Fiqh Council, who say if anywhere in the world the longitude and the latitude is 8 and 5, somewhere it will be sighted. Am I clear? So when it is possible for anybody to see it somewhere in the world, you don't have to wait to see it, you can make the announcement ahead of time. Now, let me explain to you what happens most of the time. Let's say moon was born, let's say in England, or let's say in Mecca, for example, 11 o'clock in the morning. Now, from 11 till 9 p.m., there's 12 hours before it sunsets in Mecca. Say, for example, Yarhamukallah. That was really a Meccan shout. Okay, mashallah. So, for example, if the moon is 12 hours old and sets even 1 second later than the the sunset. So it means that it remained in the horizons of Mecca a minute after the sunset. So our criterion says that between us and Mecca are 8 hours, for example. The moon was already 12 hours when it set in Mecca. Now when it travels to us in the East Coast, it adds 8 more hours. So now the age of the moon by the time it comes to Detroit is 20 hours. By the time it goes to California, the age is going to be 23 hours. By the time it goes to Hawaii, its age is going to be 25 hours. Usually, it takes 14 to 15 hours after the age that you can see the moon. So even if I do not see it here in Detroit, I know it is in the horizon, and somewhere it will be seen. So if it is not seen here, but any place where we share the night, let's say South America, definitely it's going to be seen because it's going to be 30 hours age, very big. But remember what used to be happening in Pakistan or India. In the night time, they would say nobody saw the moon, but then the news came somewhere in the middle of the morning, and they made the announcement at suhoor time, moon has been sighted, so everybody fast. Or moon has been sighted, tomorrow is Eid. Same fatwa. If say, for example, somebody calls us from South America and say, I saw the moon, and that night is still night, I'm supposed to be fasting. So even though I have not seen it in Detroit, it is guaranteed that somewhere where I share the night with, it will definitely be seen. So based upon it, we make the announcement ahead of time. We are not compromising on the Sunnah of Rasulullah Sallam, but we are not requiring its actual sighting. We are going with the possibility of sighting. So therefore, the rule is very clear. When in Saudi Arabia, say for example, What Mufti Saab might have been talking is the calculation for sighting. When it comes to calculation for sighting, there could be difference of opinion because there's dust, there is moisture, there is light, for example, or there is cloud. But when it comes to the birth, there's no difference of opinion. So therefore, sometime when people confuse you that look, this astronomical said that it cannot be seen. So where have they seen or what? But honestly, sometime some of the people, especially living in the desert, not having the electricity and having clear atmosphere, can have the possibility of looking. I remember one time, my father was able to see the moon. We were standing at the top of our roof. And we 13, 14 young people could not see it. Where is that? Where is that? And he would say, look at that, look at that. Because after spending his entire life in seeing the moon, he was able to locate it while we were unable to, because sometimes even the experience comes and plays a role. So therefore, with all honesty, I would say that even if it is something you and me have not seen, I would still follow the assembly of the most sacred people who are standing at the most sacred spot in the most sacred time. Following them and imitating them is the guarantee of sawab, and doing it by ourselves, it doesn't make sense to me and say, no, people are staying at the place of Arafah, but that is not Arafah for me. Because Arafah is not only time, it's a place. So you cannot disconnect it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to follow what is the best.